All right.
All right, so we should be live.
We are live.
All right, I'm just checking because we're going live for the first time on Facebook at the same time as well as.
Ah.
I don't see it yet.
It popped up on Facebook for me.
Oh, can we see it if we're on Facebook? What?
Yes,
Let
so
me
go
share
to
it.
your Facebook. If you, there we go. I see us on. We're on YouTube.
Awesome.
How do
I'm
I
trying to
share
figure
it?
out how to do this. I feel so old.
Hi,
How do the
Megan.
youth do this?
You.
The youth.
I see Jason's popped up. Oh, my mine hasn't popped up.
Because I went to Ties and shared from there.
So I'm just gonna.
Oh, that's what you did?
Yeah. I just look for the first person that pops up on their page, and then I just share it from there.
All right, let me do that too. I'm showing
I
my
don't see it.
And I did it wrong. I shared it to my story instead of my page.
I don't know how to do it, but that's okay. I'm just excited to be here.
All right. I
You
share
crazy kids and your technology.
If you go to mine, Siobhan, you should be able to go to my page and then just click share on mine. Cool.
Oh, I see me. Shut up.
I shared it, so we're good.
All right. Hey, Megan, how you doing? Annabelle, I hope I said that right. How you doing? And we are live. Pretty sure. Look at this. Yep, there we go. So we're live. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We usually give people a few minutes, so we'll go to like a minute or so left since we're all sharing to let people jump in. And then please make sure if you are, oh, here we go. Jessica McCoy.
Jessica.
Please, if you're in the chat, share as well. And as you guys know, that this is a very interactive conversation. So if you're in the chat, please make sure you go ahead and throw stuff in the comments. And if you have logged on, go ahead and give a shout out to yourself so we know you're on here and say hello. This is going to be a fun show tonight. Let's see here. So, well, Jessica, we're glad you're looking forward to the conversation. We're looking forward to having the conversation. Tonight's going to be interesting because we do have our usual folks that are on, but you might not see them. So I just want to make sure people understand that William Isaac, as you can see in the chat, is on with us in the background. And he is going to be dropping some knowledge for us inside the chat. And we have that director, Ty, who will be directing things from the background today as well. Today's show is going to be a little bit shorter than our typical 2-hour show. We are going to see if this show could be kept to an hour. That's the goal. We're going to find out today. And we have 2 topics that we're going to touch on. So we'll cover the first one and then we'll move on. But before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce who we have on the panel today. I'll go ahead and start off by saying welcome back, as always, the brother who's been on here from day one, Mr. JD from Ohio. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
Very good. And then coming to us from North Carolina in parts that are unknown, Miss
Got to keep my location secret, you know?
The government is watching. And then coming out of Philly, returning again for the second time. Thank you so much, Mr. Jason Lewis. How you doing, sir?
I'm blessed, man. Blessed.
Very good. And for the first time on the panel, and I'm really happy and excited that she was able to join us, coming all the way from Portland, Oregon. Miss Shigi, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Black by popular demand.
Black by popular demand. I love it. So what's great is I knew when we invited you that there was going to be a dope shirt that came along with you, and you did not.
Thank you.
I will be your host and moderator tonight, of course, DFJ. And look at that. Sharice says Philly's in the house. Hey, Sharice, I think you're at Philly. Hey. You moved to Philly. So I'll be your host tonight, and we're going to go ahead and get this show started. So the first topic that we have for today is July 4th and Independence Day. Should we, as Black people, be celebrating it? So Independence Day celebrates freedom for most Americans, but how are Black Americans thinking about or even feeling about celebrating that holiday? I'm going to ask the panel, do you feel Black Americans should celebrate Independence Day? And I will start with Jason, because you made a real interesting face. So go ahead, brother. Do you think Black Americans should celebrate Independence Day?
That is a negative, a major negative. It definitely wasn't an Independence Day for us at all. We had nothing to celebrate because we were enslaved, we were being tortured, raped, murdered, and bartered across this country. So it's no independence for me at all.
Okay, thank you very much. Drea, how do you feel? Should Black Americans celebrate Independence Day?
So I agree with Jason. You know, we have our independence, which we celebrate on Juneteenth. I think a lot of people were not, aware that, slavery wasn't fully abolished until 1865, which is, way after the Declaration of Independence and, independence from and all that, came about. So I definitely think that, it's not a celebration, now that I've learned more about my history that I like to celebrate. So I'm sticking to Juneteenth from here on out.
All right, so that's 2 for 2. Shigi, how do you feel? Should Black Americans celebrate Independence Day?
I think that's an interesting question because when you say celebrate, there's a lot of different meanings to that word. Am I going to go out and buy a bunch of plates with the American flag on it and a little outfit or a bikini or what have you and, go America? No. But if it is a paid holiday and it happens during the week, you goddamn right, I'm going home. I'm staying home to reflect and learn and grow. But in terms of like going and buying a bunch of low grade missiles to light in my driveway, not so much. But I'll damn sure take that extra day off.
Okay, well, I will take a little bit of offense to that because if you saw the video I posted, we had a lot of low grade missiles that we were shooting off that night.
I bet you did. That's how the government gets you. You just lighten the way to your house.
All right, JD, how do you feel about this topic? Should Black Americans celebrate Independence Day?
I feel like you should celebrate what you feel like celebrating. For me, will I be celebrating 4th of July? I'm with Siobhan. Like, if you're going to give me the day, I'm going to spend the time with my family. You know what I mean? But am I going all out in this, like, exorbitant way to show that I'm some kind of a patriot? No. I didn't celebrate Juneteenth this year. I'll be completely honest with you. I will next year because I didn't know about it. Like, I learned about Juneteenth on Blackish, right? So that episode of Blackish shit, learned about Juneteenth. I was like, all right, cool. Still really didn't put that much effort into it. So I'm like, I'm not going to start doing it now because it's the trend. I'm going to educate myself over the year and be prepared for Juneteenth coming next year. But when 4th of July comes around, am I taking the day? Absolutely. I'm kind of like, I'm right there with Siobhan. I'm not going to do all this extra stuff, but that's me. If you are African-American and you are very connected with your country and you want to go out there and you want to celebrate, like, live your best life. But I think that's a personal decision that each African-American has to make. Okay,
so it's interesting that you say that. How do you feel about African-Americans who decide, and JD, I think you made your point on this, so I'll ask the rest of the panel. How do you feel about African-Americans who decide that they want to continue to celebrate Independence Day?
That's their prerogative. There's I'm not going to, blast somebody for wanting to celebrate that. I think it's a personal choice. It's a reflection of where you are in your journey as, I don't want to say awakening, but, some people just want to celebrate it. And I mean, that's fine. It's a moment for you to reflect and think about the realities of what was happening during that time. And, but if you want to celebrate it, in other ways, and that's how you show your patriotism, celebrate it to your heart's content. But, it's a personal choice for me.
All right.
Go ahead. If I may, 50 years ago, the state of Mississippi banned Sesame Street because it was too integrated. Sesame Street, like Big Bird, Elmo. I I think about that when I think about celebrating the 4th of July. And I think about my grandmother's grandfather, whose earliest memory was waving goodbye to his mother when the ship pulled away from the port. And as DJ, as I mentioned before, like before we went live, we were talking about this, and Frederick Douglass said, "What is the 4th of July to a slave? What is it?" And so while I recognize and appreciate the benefits that I've had from being born in this country and not somewhere else, right, I also recognize the just pure utter horror and debauchery and vilification and denial and just subjugation that this country has put people of African descent under, and to, you know, to larger populace, brown people in general, but specifically speaking, Black people. So it's very hard for me to, you know, wave a flag and pledge allegiance to a country that has never pledged allegiance to me. You know, we sent young men off to go fight in both world wars, and they came back and were lynched in uniform. A couple days before the 4th of July, there was a soldier that was mutilated and just awful. I'm speaking about Vanessa. Forgive me. I can't. Yeah, I'm speaking specifically to her. So it's very, Gillen, it's very, very hard for me to say, let's celebrate this. This is an amazing place to live. When I grew up Black in Anchorage, Alaska, there was nothing easy about that in terms of what it meant to be, who I am and what I look like there. Like, you know, people see us as Americans, but they see us as Black first. And so it's very hard for me to reconcile that with a you know, deep abiding love for this country and wanting to celebrate its independence when, quite frankly, we were still considered 3/5 of a person. So if you want to celebrate it, you know, 4th of July because it means something to you and you have a great deal of patriotism and pride in this country, I'm not going to fault you for it. I just ask that you respect my decision to not do the same.
Wait, JL, before you jump in, I just want to say I do want to reach out into the conversation and say Kathy Pace has posted, my family doesn't celebrate July 4th as a holiday, but we get together as a family unit and as a family cookout without the fireworks. So that is one way of celebrating. And Megan says, as an ally, it seems counterintuitive to do so. I did not and will not from this year forward, which is interesting. JL, please go ahead and speak your piece.
So when we talk about individuals, I think if you don't know, like I respect JD. JD said, you know, I really wasn't aware. But if you do know and you still celebrate, it just reminds me of that Harriet Tubman quote. You know, I freed thousands of slaves. I could have freed thousands more had they knew they were slaves. And there's a lot of people that are so content with the mediocrity that don't really see their true worth and their true value of what they mean. You know, so when you have the history and you have the knowledge of self and knowing what we have done for this country. I mean, the first soldier that was killed in a war for this country was a man of color. We continue to show loyalty to people that are not loyal to us. And at the end of the day, you know, for me, when people say, go back to your country, this is my country. Because when you really study the Native Americans, they were of color. They then changed them to Negroes. Do your research. I'm not European descent. I mean, maybe my muddled blood because Massa was in the house. But I'm a Native American of this country. So this is my country. So you need to go back to where you go when people make those comments. But ultimately, you know, when people celebrating the 4th, it's like, and you know, it's very disheartening. It's very disappointing. It's very disappointing to be patriotic when at the end of the day, the country shows no patriotism to you.
So Jason, I got a question for you. So you say if people are aware and they still decide to celebrate, it's very disheartening to you. But have we taken into account that I'm not going to say that there are some people that are just like, listen, they're going to live their life the way they live it. They're going to be content with where they're at. But I would say there's a high amount of people that, you know, kind of live their life the way I did for majority of it, where I was just trying to survive. I wasn't trying to be at the top. I wasn't trying to be at the bottom. I was trying to flow right there in the middle, kind of, you know, hide in plain sight, as they would say, right? do all the things that you're supposed to do, but you're really, sitting there in survival mode, not speaking out, not talking about these topics, not educating your friends that are not only African American, but Caucasian or Cuban American, Latinx, like not educating on them. And that all changed for me realistically a couple months ago, because I used to never speak out on those things. So I still think you got a group of people that sit in that space too, that's working on finding their voice to actually speak out. And I do agree with you. There is a group of people that are just content where they're at, and that's where they're going to be. But I also think that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
Well, I hear you. I hear you, JD, and I hear what you're saying, right? But I mean, I think it depends on how you were raised, your background. I come from a very pro-Black background. My grandma was an ex-Panther, so my dad's a Moor. I'm a Moorish descent, so I'm very in tune with the things that's going on. So when you say people are just content, that's part of the problem too, because you being content, you're not really a part of the cause of us growing. It's a selfish mentality. I'm worried about self. And a lot of people are really worried about self. They worry about, I don't want to rock the boat because it's so hard. When we really collectively come together and really put our minds together, put our resources together, put our money together, we're an unstoppable force. You look at the NBA or a lot of these athletes that earn all these millions. And if they really collectively put their money together, you could really have a whole areas of land. But Mahomes just made $500 million. And ultimately, there's other individuals like Michael Jordan, LeBron, all these other individuals. So you got we created so many different things. So, but when you're content, when you're just content, that's when you hurt the culture. You think about this. Back in the day, before we were allowed to go to other neighborhoods, our ghettos contained doctors, lawyers, politicians. We had all these individuals in the ghetto. And guess what? Our children got to see these individuals in their everyday walk of life. The minute you had the opportunity to leave, that's when a lot of our kids got to see those positive figures and those major things. So you think about Black Wall Street, the dollar circulated over 100 times before it left the community.
Wait, really quick.
I think that's a really good point that you're bringing up in terms of solidarity and making sure that we're working together, and no fault there, none at all. And Jason, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think one of the other things that we're also talking about is survival, right? And that idea of, like you said, you didn't want to be at the top, you didn't want to be in the bottom, you didn't want to be in the middle. In some communities, Jason, you may not have other Black people to lean on. And while there was a Black population in, just for example, like when I grew up in Anchorage, there were Black people. It's not like you walk outside and you're like, oh my God, Negroes. Like, I can't believe I can, it's not like that, but it's very different. And if you don't have those ties, it can be very difficult to go out on your own and say, no, I'm not celebrating 4th of July. No, I'm not going to shop at this store. No, I'm not going to do these things, because you don't have that support system. And because, quite frankly, it can be dangerous to be different, very dangerous to be different. Like, I think about, there's a fantastic book about the migration of Black people in the 30s from the South to the North. It's called The Warmth of Other Suns. I would recommend anybody who's interested in social justice read it. But one of the things that they talked about was like when the communities tried to band together and say, y'all aren't treating us right, that's when the lynching started real quick. And there's that instilled fear. And if you don't have a community that can prop you up and protect you, you're all on your own. So if you are one of those people who lives in, a farming community in Podunk, wherever in the South, and everybody else is throwing up, 4th of July flags, and you're like, Black power, and it's just you, prepare to see some horses and some torches. Like, well, and I'm not saying that your point isn't right. I just want to make sure that we're looking at it from everybody's perspective, because it's real easy to know you're right and like focus on that.
But I understand that, but also you don't necessarily have to say Black power, but you could just not celebrate. You could not participate. True. What do you say? Silent protests. But
like, think about, like, if you're on a military base, right, and everybody else has flags up, and you're like the one Black family that's like, no, we're not doing that. But everybody else is, you know what I mean? And given the military's historic poor treatment of Black service members. I would probably be uncomfortable if I lived on a base and everybody else was around me celebrating 4th of July and I was like, nah. Or my wife and kids were like, nah. Like that's, I mean, I get your point. I just want to make sure that we're
believer. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. That's just me.
I hear what you're saying.
And you can feel that way, but I would say that it's very hard to push that ideal on everyone. So that's why I'm kind of in that space where, like, I know what I'm going to do, but I can't tell other people what they can do with their lives. I can try and hope to educate them or lead by example, but I can't tell them, hey, you need to do this because you're African American. So that means, you know what I mean? That's basically what
but that's what I'm saying. You can't tell anybody to do anything, right? But if you enlighten them and you give them the knowledge and you still make the decision, that's on you.
Dre, what are you trying to say? I feel like I keep seeing you try to speak.
I'm sorry, Dre.
So I think what, the things that I'm hearing you guys echo is that everyone is at a different level as far as their awareness to, celebrations. Like JD said, he just learned about Juneteenth and all of that, and all the things that are going on about a month ago. And I think right now, 2020, it was a cheesy thing when we started at the beginning of the year, but everybody was talking about 2020 vision. I want to see where 2020 leads. And this year has highlighted some of the inadequacies and racial inequalities that have been going on for several years, hundreds of years. And I think a lot of people are waking up. So we can't fault people for being a little bit behind the curve, because there have been a lot of people that have been in that survival mentality just to get by, not rock the boat. But this year is highlighting like how we've just been accepting the status quo. And if we all continue to be complacent, nothing is going to change. That's why it's so powerful seeing all these movements start and, seeing the things that can happen when we all, stand together, allies, people of color, minorities working together to change the status quo. So I think, we have to address that, everyone is at different levels of, accepting that we need, change, but I don't think we should bash people for being at different levels. And if you want to stay at that, not woke level, that's fine, but don't complain about, how you're treated. So if you're not going to speak up, if you're not going to be, an advocate, don't complain if you don't get a job because of discrimination. If you're not part of the cause to make a change.
So
I really
I do want to jump in just quickly just to make sure. So JL, I understand what Dre is saying, and I think that's the issue that we're having is that we don't have the strong community as we used to. But right now, there's more of an acceptance of speaking up and speaking out, and you don't feel like you're as alone because you see people that look like you that are also stepping up and saying, "We are done. We are tired of this, and we're coming together." But that is not consistently been the way things are run. Typically, you might be in whatever town you're in. And I remember going to I think a baseball game, and the national, and I was younger, I was like in my early 20s, and the national anthem came on. And I'll be really honest with you, I wasn't even thinking about standing up, but everybody and their mama stood up. And I looked up and everybody was looking at me. I was like, oh, and I stood up. And not because of any other reason of just human nature. It's just like if everybody's doing something, almost naturally, people gravitate to doing whatever that is. And so I think there's a bit of that's that natural instinct that happens. And there's also the fear, to what Dre was saying, if we don't have a community behind us to support us, it's a lonely island that you're stepping out on to say, hey, the 4th of July is wrong when everybody else around you is stating, no, it's not. I do have another question for the panel, and that is if you think about what the 4th of July is celebrating, it's the Independence Day, it's celebrating, it's a lot of America this, America that. Outside of being born here, what makes you feel American?
My dental coverage.
That's actually a great question. I've never really thought about that. I guess the opportunities that I have in this country, like, if I had been born somewhere like the Middle East, with how women are not treated equally. And we still have some like gender inequality here in this country, but I feel like it's a lot better than some other places. So I think about that, but I'm still a Black person in America, so I still have obstacles to overcome in regards to how I'm treated here. But it's better than other places, but it's still not the best.
It's interesting that you say that, because a lot of times we look at other people's trauma and we minimize our own, and it's really easy to do that, right? Because somebody's always got it worse. But I think about, like, when you're saying in other countries where they don't treat women as well, I think about here where a Black woman is like 5 times more likely to die in childbirth than her white counterpart. Like, we have a higher birth death rate than Botswana, which is just right. And I was thinking about this earlier, like, how do I identify myself as a Black American woman, American Black woman? And I was thinking about the things that make me feel American are sometimes the things that make me feel ashamed. Like my sense of entitlement when things don't go the way I want them to, or as quickly as I want them to, or something. Like, I remember I went to Germany and I got a drink and it didn't have ice in it. And I was like, why doesn't this drink? You know what I mean? Like, I was totally shocked, but that is so American of me to go to another country, right? And expect the same things that I get here, and immediately assume that something was wrong with the service rather than something was wrong with my mindset. And that a lot of the time is what reminds me that I'm American, or like I'll see people go to another country and be angry that people don't speak English, or be angry that there's not a McDonald's or a KFC, and like, why the hell are you going to Italy to eat chicken nuggets? What are you doing? So, like, the things that make me feel American, I mean, and there's some things that make me feel good, like trying to be a better person, looking at the opportunities that America has opened up for other people, and not just other people, but other Black people, because there's Black people that live here that aren't African American, and they have a markedly different experience here than we do in a lot of ways. But I look at, like, how people came here, went to Ellis Island, and then started businesses, and that is something that I am very proud of, like our entrepreneurial spirit, our ability to say, this is what I love, this is my passion, this is what I'm going to go do, versus some collectivist cultures that don't care about your passions. It's all about the family. And I'm really grateful that I grew up in an environment where, we cared about our family, but it was also very much like, baby girl, what is it that you want out of this life? Go get it.
JL, same question. Outside of being born here, what makes you feel American?
That is a deep question, because when I look at my youth, my arrogance, especially when you travel abroad, you have this arrogance that, almost you've been taught, and it's been embedded in you to be better than other people. And then I just think about the propaganda that America used to always show about, Africa. They will always show the negative, the starving children, all the negative. But then when I met some of my frat brothers, and they're from like different parts of Nigeria, Ghana, and they talk about like the beauties of their country, and invite me over and show me pictures, like this is what our cities look like. I just think it's another way. When I think about what makes you feel American, the best thing I can say is what makes me feel American is how they try to detach my greatness and detach where I really come from to minimize me, because they know I'm truly great. They know how much my people have given to this country. And what makes me feel American is the fact I feel less than when I walk into a store, because either I don't have the right suit, I don't use the proper language, or because of education. And the day I decide to wear my Timbs and my jeans and my fitted, and they look at me like I'm a thug, that's what makes me feel like I'm American.
Okay. JD, can you give us your response? What makes you, outside of being born here, what else makes you feel American?
I think somebody else was trying to say something. I wanted to give them an opportunity before I gave my answer. I'm good.
I already spoke. Go for it.
All right, cool. So when I think about what makes me feel American besides being born here, I think back to elementary school, where we're watching Schoolhouse Rock, and they're talking about America, the melting pot, right? And you see, all of these different immigrants, people of different backgrounds and colors, and they can all come here and, have an opportunity at success, or an opportunity to create a better life for them. The fact of the matter is, people still come from other countries to America to find a better life than what they had in their country. The fact that, a lot of my family members not only served in this military, served in our military, some had very high ranking positions. A lot of my uncles were police officers. Like, I look at those positives around that sense of pride that I feel as an American. I'm also proud to be an American because even though I understand that, as I have a ton of melanin in my skin, which means that I am going to potentially be discriminated against in a lot of areas of my life or miss out on opportunities, I still have the right to talk about that and criticize our country to do better and to get better. So, like, when I start to think about all of those things together, that is what makes me proud to be an American. Like, I was born here. I'm not really looking to go anywhere else. What I am looking for is, I'm looking to make this country better for everyone, because we also have to understand, even in my personal experience and really kind of speaking out against all of this stuff, I've literally gotten into some very heated battles, like places where they probably should have never gone on social media. And where that same American was able to have a conversation later on in that day, and not only have the ability to understand where they were coming from, but give them an ability to understand where I'm coming from. And then we were able to reconcile. And I don't know if that happens as consistently all over the place. So when I take a look at those kind of components there, that's what makes me personally proud to be an American. But I'm still going to speak out. I'm still going to speak out against what's wrong and what we need to fix, because that's what we are able to do.
And that's patriotism. That is being a patriot. Patriot is not blind solidarity with, whatever your cause is. The patriotism is the ability to look at something and say, this is wrong, and we need to fix this so that it's better for everybody. And it's interesting that you asked what makes me feel like an American, because the things that make me feel like an American, like I said, sometimes they embarrass me and shame me. But the things that make me feel like I belong in this country are the things that are a part of my culture, like Motown, which for some people that might sound kind of silly, but like, we did that here. When I look at the legacy of my ancestors and how we were in those fields, we were picking cotton, we built those railroads, we built this economy, we built the White House. You know what I'm saying? I look at that and I'm like, no, this is where I belong. This is home. And while I don't always feel American, I certainly feel like this place is where I belong. This is my home. My blood, sweat, and tears are in this soil. I'm not going anywhere. Right. And I think about hip hop and how it is just completely just transcended everything and just gone all over the globe. And when it comes back to it, that's ours. And that was built here. I think about like Detroit, just like in general. I think about our ability to overcome just ridiculous circumstances. Like, no matter what people throw at us, we always come back. We always come back bigger and stronger and better than ever. And that makes me feel like I belong here, but not necessarily American. Not that I am not American, and not that I'm not grateful or appreciative, rather, to have been born here. But there are times where I don't feel American, but I feel like this is mine. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. And you bring up an interesting point where you said, it's patriotic to see things that are wrong and want to fix it, despite the flaws of the founding fathers. That was essentially how our independence came about. They saw the increased taxation coming from Britain, and, they recognized that there are things that we needed to change here. And like I said, despite their flaws, that is what being an American is about, seeing things that need to change and making the transition to make things happen and make it better.
Amen. So it's interesting to hear what the panel has talked about, what makes them American. Opportunities, entitlement, and even as much as we're better than some out there. which is sad because I feel like at some point you would have thought that the bar is raised higher to than just, well, we're better than some out there. I think it was July 5th, 1852, Frederick Douglass said, "I say it with a sad sense of disparity between us. I am not included within the pale of glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us." And in 2020, I think that's still relevant today. But we are going to move on to the next topic. Thank you all very much. And thank you for the chat. Everybody in the chat that is participating, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And please make sure you make yourself known. If you join the chat, say, hey, what's up? Give yourself a shout out. And please continue to share live on your Facebook and stream with us. We're going to move to the next topic to talk about NFAC, the NFAC. So is this movement good for the cause, bad for the cause? How do you feel about it? And Jay, I'm not going to go to you yet because I started with you first. So because I saw you itching already, you was like, oh, like you had that movement in the seat, like, woo.
Listen, if he want to chop, if he chomping at the bit, let him get it.
No.
JD,
let me hear what everybody got to say.
JD, how you feel about the NFAC?
All right, so I think they're dangerous, and I don't agree. I don't agree with a lot of what they're saying. And let me preface this by saying that I watched the kind of quick interview that the Grandmaster did at Stone Mountain after they did their show of force. Mm-hmm. And it was a couple things that he said in there that, kind of turned me off. And then there was one thing that he said in there, I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. Now, when he talks about we can't bring science to a gunfight, I get what he's saying there. When we look at any other group, they are able to protest, and they're able to protest open carry, and there's normally not an issue with that. But typically when African Americans do the same, there's typically an issue with that. You see that happen on a pretty consistent basis. There's more eyes on the situation. It gets misconstrued more. But when he started speaking about segregation, like, give us the opportunity to build our own, we'll take Texas. I can't get on board with that because I'm not on board with segregation in the first place, right? Then, he's really big on we're an eye for an eye organization. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that type of organization, but like you're trying to, like, we got enough organizations and trying to incite violence. So I don't understand how that helps the cause when we turn on the media consistently and every stereotype that you could potentially think about, they're trying to perpetuate that's out there. Like, I think what they want to do is misguided. I think it can be beneficial if they kind of get rid of some of their rhetoric. And I know the segregation thing, I'm not on board with that at all.
Okay, Drea, how do you feel?
So watching the videos and, hearing some of the things they said in that, show of force at Stone Mountain where, they said one thing I really liked is like, oh, if your gun is unregistered, get out of here, because they're trying to do things by the book. I definitely agree with, showing, a show of force because, if, protesters can storm the Capitol, with their guns, demanding haircuts, Black people should be able to do the same thing. They're abiding by their Second Amendment right. So I kind of feel like protesting for, racial equality, I kind of think that trumps, protesting to get haircuts and not wear masks and open back up the economy. But, I definitely agree that, segregation, we don't want to go backwards. I'm looking at the things that we're doing now where we're supporting Black businesses, buy Black, blackouts, and things of that nature. And that can come across as, segregationist, ideals. However, we're just trying to build ourselves back up to where we're on an even playing field. So I don't think that, creating, separate areas and, supporting Black businesses and things of that nature is a truly segregationist idea. It's building wealth back into our community so that we can get back on equal playing field. As far as like the whole movement, the things that I'm uncomfortable with is the term grandmaster, because that just makes me think of KKK, and I'm not cool with it at all. So like, change your name. They shouldn't be called grandmasters. It just makes me feel a little like twitchy inside. I did see in the comments that, you know, he's mentioned he's made some comments in support of Hitler. Not cool with that at all. Like, the Holocaust was bad. Hitler is not someone you should idolize. But I do support, you know, lawfully carrying weapons that are registered and not being intimidated by all this rhetoric from other supremacist groups. And if you notice, during that show of force, the police stayed back and there was no violence. They allowed that, you know, that protest to happen. And so if this is what it takes for our message to come across, I'm with it.
Shigi, and we're going to come back to that comment if this is what it takes, Drea, as well as the segregation comment. But Shigi, before we go back into those, I am curious, with NFAC, what are your thoughts as far as, do you think this is good or bad for the cause?
So in terms of good or bad for the cause, I honestly don't know yet. I haven't done enough research to speak confidently about their movement as a whole, but I will say that what I saw, there were some things that I was like, oh, this is really nice to see Black gun owners coming out en masse. They're responsible. Nobody had their finger on a trigger. The weapons were pointed down. They were in uniform. They were in formation. And I thought that was great because it was a great show of strength, when all too often the images that we see of Black people with guns is the dude that's pointing his, like holding his gun this way and, you know, shooting up a block. And so it's nice it's really nice to see Black people en masse, responsible gun owners that know what they're doing. In terms of, we'll take Texas, I don't want to live in Texas. I mean, and no shade to Texas. Like, I'm sure Texas, the places that I've been to Texas have been pretty awesome, except for Amarillo. Like, that alone is enough to make me say, no, I don't want that. Thank you, but no. The other thing that I think of when I look at groups like this and mindsets like this person's, and again, I'm speaking from very limited knowledge, so I could very well be wrong here. But it seems like a lot of times when you hear this kind of rhetoric, these are not the groups that are trying to dismantle white supremacy. These are the groups that are trying to replace it. They're not trying to dismantle white patriarchy. They're trying to replace it. I do not want to go from living under one person's thumb to another. And all the things that I have read and the snippets of the videos that I saw point me in that direction. And like I said, Jason, I see you rolling your eyes at me. I could be super wrong, but I'm just giving you what I got from the brief opportunity I had to study up on this in between work today. And so when I look at this and I think, is this good for the cause? I don't know if it's good for the cause, but I know as a young Black kid, to see that many Black people with guns would have been an awesome sight. It would have been incredible, because guns are not to be feared if you know what you're doing with them, right? I mean, you should still be cautious with it, but you don't have to be terrified and afraid. And I didn't grow up with guns. And so to see those kind of images as a kid, that would have been extremely transformative. Much like if, just for example, if I had seen Shuri from Black Panther, if I had seen her when I was a little girl and seen more images like her, I can tell you without a doubt, 100% my life would be different. I would be a different person. And if I had seen responsible gun owners, if I had seen people come together like that, and such large amounts of Black people with a purpose and a mission and driving towards something, just marching towards something, that would have been amazing, because my experience with that is slim to none until I moved to Chicago. Like I said, I was born and raised in Alaska. You think they're letting Black folks walk around with a bunch of guns in Alaska? Not so much. Not so much.
Jason Lewis. I know you're talking, so
let me put myself on mute.
NFAC, your thoughts, my friend. Good, bad?
I think it's definitely good. I want to address JD first. I had took notes, because when he was talking, I just want to make sure a couple of things. So we talk about the segregation piece, right? Segregation. Matter of fact, let me go back, because I've been researching, watching a lot of videos, and let's talk about the media, because Shigi said the snippets she's seen. It's so funny to me when the typical media covers things of this nature about our people. They always give the negative snippets to control the narrative. So when you listen to him, he actually had a whole speech of the aftermath, and he talked about, like, when he said Texas, he was being facetious. He's really more so along the lines of it's similar to Marcus Garvey about us going home. Now, when you look at the fact about segregation, right? You say, oh, stuff is segregated now, JD, on the regular.
Yes.
The neighborhood is segregated. The schools are segregated. So when we talk about segregation, he's saying, be for our people, be back with us. Think about this narrative, the segregation piece. When all these high school recruits are now talking about going to HBCUs, you know what that's going to do? Bring the money back to our black colleges. And I am a graduate of HBCU. So it's okay. We don't want segregation when it comes to money, because it's okay for us to go to the Texas and the Dukes and the UNCs, because again, they see dollar signs. They see dollar signs to us. So when you talk about the segregation piece, stuff is already segregated. Why not be for our people and build our unit up? You see what they did to Black Wall Street? They bombed it because we were flourishing without their help, without the typical, oh, let me give you a little bit of bread. Don't teach me how to make the bread. I'm just going to give you some bread so you can always be codependent. Now, the next thing, when you talk about inciting violence, it's so funny that when we respond to the negativity or the foolish rhetoric that that others project, and we take a stand, and we stand for on our own 2 feet, 10 toes down, we're inciting violence. No, his whole reason for going to Stone Mountain, because there was a whole bunch of things going around, like pamphlets talking about we're gonna annihilate black people on Independence Day. We're gonna do this. This is coming from the KKK. So when you research and you listen to him, it wasn't, he didn't make the first move. He responded. You said you were gonna do this, and this is what I'm gonna do. I know my
Jason,
time is running.
No. I just do want to piggyback off of that, because I want to give a quote from Grandmaster Jay himself, where he says, NFAC was not created. It was born out of necessity. It didn't come out of it came out of what you were doing to us. The real question that white America needs to ask is, what did we do to cause these people to come together and come through? So someone needs to fess up why we had to pull up. And that you don't see that on media and everything else as far as the clips. You would have to dig deeper, because
well, think about it.
Piece of control.
Guess what, DFJ? Think about it. You never see that. Think about it. How the Aurora police just killed that unarmed black man, but my man goes shoot up a movie theater, and he goes unscathed. Stop it. Again, right? If more people would stand 10 toes down, what made the Panthers so amazing? Because they said, listen, this is our right to bear arms, and we're going to make sure we show that we're not afraid of you. It's a lot of people that's scared. And there's a lot of individuals that realize that, you know what? Guess what? When I comply, I still can die.
Yes.
When I comply, I still can die. So why would I not stand up?
And I think that's something that, I think that's something that has been constant throughout, comments I've seen when it comes to these videos. Oh, look, he's resisting. Well, we've had cases where there was a man with his hands up, and he was still shot. So it doesn't matter if you comply or if you resist, the outcome is a lot of the times the same. So, these groups are starting to show that, they're not afraid. Like, Jason said, we're not afraid of, these things that you're trying to do to us. We're going to stand up for what's right. And I just think we have to find a good balance to where it doesn't become, blacks taking over, because we should want what I think is we should want equality and not trying to take over, because that just flips the balance. And I don't think we're going to get anywhere with that.
But has anybody ever seen anywhere where he said that we should take over?
No, I haven't heard that.
Okay.
And furthermore, right? I love when we keep saying we want equality. Listen, this is our right. You learned from us. They learned from us. This is facts. I'm not making up nothing. If you do your research, they went to Timbuktu to learn and study in Africa. So when you talk about equality, no, it's more so we want to keep control, because we realize that we are the birth of a lot of knowledge. the reason why you got air conditioners, the stoplight, all these different inventions, and they've stolen things from us on a repeated offense. It's not equality I want. I want you to realize who I am and what I mean to you.
And JL, we're gonna get to equality versus control. That is a whole different topic that we will be having on this show, and that is does equality cost people control, and is that ever going to actually be something that we can have? But before, I do want to go ahead and ask another question about NFAC, because of what they're doing. It's purposely antagonizing the far right Nazi white supremacist terrorist group SMART. I mean, they basically have challenged them to come out to a fight. So is this a smart tactic?
I think so. Like, if we want racism to end, we have to address it. And these silent groups that are, hiding in the background, they're in places of power over us. So we need to call them out. We need to see who are all in these groups. And so,
but they're not calling them out to expose yourself. They're saying, come out, we got our guns, bring your guns, and let's go.
That's a tricky thing, because I don't want to incite more violence, because I don't want to see loss of Black life. I don't want to see loss of white life. I want us to get to a point where we can walk down the road and coexist and not have to worry about, oh, this person's Black, oh, this person's white. I want us to get to that point. So I think inciting violence on our part would not be smart. Now, if it's in response to violence that's coming at us, I mean, you got to defend yourself.
Well, what do you think the collateral damage is going to be? Because you think you're going to call out white supremacists and they're going to come straight to NFAC with their guns, or do you think they're going to go prey on the family, the single Black person that's jogging or walking down the street, etc.? Like, I think, when you do things like this, you're misguided, because you actually think that they're going to show up to take you on. Because remember what he said, every one of them are ex-military and they're very disciplined. You think they're going to go head on into that fight, or they're going to slowly pick off Black people that are just out there in the world until they get those numbers low and then go after that? So I think there's potential for collateral damage there. And I know, Jason L., you're going to have something to say, but let me finish my point, because I do think that's the potential for that, right? So, like, it is very hard for me to kind of get behind any of these groups that are trying to incite violence, because, like, I'm pretty nonviolent on these things. So it's hard for me to get behind it.
I got you, Jay.
Like if this were,
I heard you say, oh, my fault, Shiggy. Ladies,
no, it's okay. I just, like, I'm not here to incite violence, but I am also of the mindset, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Like, if you come to my house on something crazy, I got something for you. You come to my family with something crazy, I got a whole lot more for you, right? But I also think that the problem with groups like this, not just the NFAC, but also like the Boogaloo Boys and every other, wild nut job group of people, is the lack of organization. And when you engage tactically with these, you need to have strategy. And I don't think that there's a strategy on either end. And to your point earlier about collateral damage, when you go out and you start, yapping off at the mouth about, come with it, come bring it, they will, but they probably won't do it in the way that you're expecting, and other people are going to get hurt. Now, having said that, if you came at me crazy and we went toe to toe, that's fine. But what I don't want to do is put other people at risk. Is what I'm saying.
Really quick, just to respond to you and JD, and then JL, I'm gonna toss it to you.
I see you, JL, hungry.
I'm gonna toss it to you. I will say this. Typically, I agree with, I don't like the lack of structure, but if you dig deeper and you watch how NFAC is organized, they have been extraordinarily structured, on point, with the very same message, a same direction. They protected, I forget the woman's name who needed to get around in Atlanta.
Her brother.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Like, they are probably the most organized Black militia group that I have seen, at least in my lifetime. So I feel that this group seems to be different, because if you dig deeper and you pay attention, and I know people might not like the Grandmaster J name, but if you do go, like, he'll let you know they're not on Instagram anymore, they're not on Facebook anymore. I think they just have the YouTube channel because there's too many people creating fake accounts. But they're trying to streamline it so that you actually get the very specific information, because they're so easy to give disinformation in today's society that somebody can just create an account on Twitter and be like, boom, we're NFAC. And then they can say anything that they want to say. One of the things that they were struggling with is that people were creating fake accounts saying that they want to be a part of the cause. When they go back and look into it, they're finding that these are people who have no idea, like that don't want anything to do with them, or who are just curious. The Black people are like, well, let me just see if this is something I want to be a part of. And they will let you know clearly. I think he said everybody wants to be in the army, but not everybody is qualified. And this is not how can I be down? We are not those type of groups. They're not Black Lives Matter. They're not any of the other ones. This is, if you're not willing to kill or be killed, then this is not for you. But they're also positioning themselves as Black folks need an army. And they are willing to be that army for Black folks. When I hear I don't want to incite violence or that's wrong, if you could tell me another time in history where we've seen major change where violence wasn't the thing that incited or caused that change to happen, I'd love to hear it, because we, historically as a country, that's who we are.
Correct. Does that mean that we still
asking politely doesn't get us the results that we want
over and over again? I mean, does that mean because that's what we were and what we can that we continue?
But as Black people, wait, yeah, I'll say, wait, it's not word, but as Black people,
what we are,
is marching getting us anywhere? It has marching gotten us anywhere as a people, as Black people?
I like, again, I understand what you're saying about marching and picketing and all that stuff. And I've been said that I'm not out there gonna get out there marching because I don't believe it's doing anything. But then we always use the argument of everything in America has happened because of violence. So basically we're saying we're going to keep doing the same thing. That's the question I'm asking. The other question I have is who's on the panel is going to go grab their guns and go join this group? Because I can tell you right now, that won't be me.
We're going to get to that, but not yet. JL, give us your response. We will get to that question, JD. It's a good question.
So JD, I love what you said. He was like, I don't want to antagonize them. Let's not antagonize them because they just going to start picking. My man, Ahmaud Arbery was just minding his business, and they picked him off. Are you kidding me? They picking us off regardless.
So you want more of it?
Hold, brother. What I'm saying is this: they've been picking us off for years. What my man, what did Will say? Racism isn't getting better; it's just getting filmed. You just see it more. It's been happening forever. So at the end of the day, right? Again. Live on your feet, die on your knees. What I'm saying is this: if it comes to you, you could be, please, and they can still try to end your life. You've seen it with George Floyd. He wasn't resisting arrest, and they took that man's life. They picked us off regardless. You have these individuals that's already been in the Senate for years. That's police commissioners, all these in the military. So again, to mobilize and say, guess what? We are for us, by us, and we're going to protect us. That's the thing. But
I think that's different than picking people off, though, because you're saying they've been picking us off, and it feels a lot like, and I could be wrong, and I don't want to frustrate you, but what I'm hearing you say is they've been picking us off, and you're absolutely right, they have. But that doesn't mean I'm about to go out and find some white kid and put my knee in his neck and be like, this is for George. Like that's not it at all.
And that's not what they're about either. They didn't say they would pick nobody off. What they said was, we respond to your level. You come with aggression, we respond aggressively. I meet you where you are. There were threats made, they met them where they are. And ultimately, let me just be very clear on this. Me being former in law enforcement, it's a lot of individuals that were stone cold suckers growing up that go become police and military to get courage and heart. And behind all that, you still a sucker. But now you have the authority to impose your will because you want somebody to respect you. There's a lot of people that abuse their power. So no, don't miss me with it.
I think to Jason's point, we've seen the pamphlets that, KKK has, come about. They've detailed this is what they're going to do to Black people as of right. I can't even say that it's all talk because we have these weird suicides by hanging that's going on in the country. Mm-hmm. All these little, an attempted lynching that happened in Indiana. I don't think they're just talk. I think they're moving behind the scenes, and we need a medium to protect Black people, because right now we're being killed in the streets. We're being killed by people that are supposed to protect us. So we need a group that's going to protect Black women, protect Black men. And I see what NFAC is trying to do. However, like I said, we just have to be cautious that we're not the aggressors in this situation. It's good to be in defense of Black people, but we don't need to be going out on the streets and shooting up people unless that is a response to what has happened.
And I know, Jason, that's not what you're saying. That's not what you're saying that they're doing.
Grandmaster Jay, I said, I just want to real quick, and I want to piggyback on, because Grandmaster Jay said everything is done legally under the law.
Yes. And he definitely mentioned that with saying, make sure your gun is registered, because we're doing this by the book. And if your gun's not registered, get out of here. And I think it's to the point that if this group can try and mimic some of the things that the military does on, when we're, in country, other places trying to, combat our enemies, they have rules of engagement. You can't just open fire because you see a threat. There has to be some type of, it has to be in response to something. There are rules that they have to follow. So I'm all about it. If they adopt that model, they follow rules and are not the aggressors. They're in defense.
I own guns. I own plenty of them. I'm all about the Second Amendment. And I tell all my friends, and I say, make sure you don't get no felony and go purchase your firearm legally. It's my right, my Second Amendment right.
So what I hear is that this is possibly okay as long as we continue to retaliate. So it's still the mentality of let's just sit back and wait. And if they do something, then it's okay if we respond, which seems a little dangerous because, to your point, Drea, they have been not just on camera legally killing us and getting away with it, whether they like in law enforcement or not in law enforcement. If you think about Trayvon Martin, that jackass that killed him was not in law enforcement, and he was able to get away with it.
Stand his ground. He stood his ground.
We're to a kid. We're hanging, but we don't have the same right to stand our ground. That law does not work in our favor.
I think, DJ, if I may, because Jason, I understand what you're saying, and I also understand what you're saying too, Dre, about like behind the scenes, they're taking us out, they're picking us off. I am all about meeting aggression with aggression. My point is, though, if we start off as the aggressors, like when I was a kid, my mom used to tell me all the time, you don't ever hit first. You wait till they hit you and then you retaliate, because if you hit them first, you're going to be the one that gets in trouble, not them. And then my dad came along, and my dad's from New York. And my dad was like, Black, you need to put them on their ass immediately, as soon as you see the first sign of aggression. Having said that, my dad has also spent most of my life in prison. So like I understand the want to be a fit to play offense rather than defense, but I know how that goes for us. It doesn't end well. And like I live in Oregon, and this is an open carry state, and I have a conceal and carry. I have 2 different licenses to conceal and carry, and we live in this neighborhood where like people all the time question like, oh, is that your house? Or, hey, do you clean houses around here? Not like there's always this question about whether or not I belong here, which makes me feel unsafe. And my mom and I have started walking, and now I want to start carrying, but because my permit hasn't come in for Oregon, I have to open carry, which immediately makes me a target. And so like, it's all well and good when we have these large groups of fearless, fierce, amazing, well-organized Black people protecting Black people. But it's when we're alone that makes me nervous. That's what scares me, because I know I'm not aggressive. I'm not aggressive at all. But if I walk down these streets of Hillsborough or Portland, Oregon with my 9 or my 45, I'm strapped up, the cops are coming. And I'm like, do you understand what I'm saying? Right? And here's the other thing. The other day I called the sheriff's office and said, hi, there have been coyotes spotted in my neighborhood. I have a gun. I would like to start carrying my gun in order to protect me and my mom, or like wild dogs, wherever, like the critters that are out there. And I said, given that I am a Black woman and I will be carrying a gun out in the open. What is your best recommendation for me to deal with law enforcement when they are inevitably called on me? And the lady was like, geez, I can't advise you on that. I don't know it. I don't know. Now, imagine me out here with my black, by popular demand shirt, walking around with I am immediately a target. I could be in a ball gown with a 9mm, and I am still going to get the police called on me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like there's no place where I'm not the aggressor, and that is what makes me uncomfortable. In large groups, thumbs up. All by myself, now I'm a little nervous.
But Shiggy, guess what? Without your 9mm, you're a target. When I walk in certain stores, my blick behind big self, and I got my shirt on, I'm a target. And before they even hear me speak, they look at me or how I'm dressed, I'm a target. Once they hear me articulate, he has a little education. So guess what? When I open carry and you see my AR pistol or my 9, it makes you think, run up on me if you want to. I will correct you quick.
I understand what you're saying. No matter what we do, I've got I'm not 3 degrees behind me, and none of those are going to make a damn bit of difference to a racist cop. They're just, or a racist Karen or Chad, whatever we're calling them this week. But at the end of the day, I also don't want to do anything else that is going to make me a target. I don't want to be any more. And for you, that may work really well. Open carry, walking around. I got something for that ass if you come for me. That is not my. That's not how I'm moving through this. That's not how I'm surviving. And so I understand that works well for you. But in this position that I'm in, particularly as a woman, you know how terrifying that is? I appreciate that. But that is terrifying because while they may kill you, they will have fun with me first. And maybe if I'm lucky, if I am lucky, they'll kill me. That's not something that I want to experience.
And that's the point of what I make with JD, where I say, we can't just live. We need other kings to protect our queens, to make sure our queens are safe where they are. So it's not the fact that Shiggy's all the way in, or she should be able to just not be on self. It should be somebody around that says, you know what, I got you. And that's the part we're missing. Missing that part when they say segregation. No, we need to get back to that community. Could you call it segregation? I call it community. I'm about my community, helping protect our community. I'm in education. I see my kids all the time, and I tell them all the time, yo, guess what? You got to be able to articulate. You got to be able to respond a certain way. You can't always act this way because you're automatically going to be considered this. That's not happening in the county when these kids are snapping out, because most school shootings aren't coming from individuals of color. But guess what?
They don't want to talk about that.
That would be a really great topic.
They suffer from mental health. If I may. Excuse me. They suffer from mental health. We're just thugs.
I would think that from a podcast perspective, what you just brought up, I think that would be an excellent conversation in terms of what role does the black man play in protecting the black woman, because that is a whole nother ball of wax. Like, I hear what you're saying, but the reality is most black men, at least in the broader scheme of things, are not about that action. And there are multiple Twitter threads, Facebook threads, all kinds of think pieces in Reddit and all that other stuff about how black men are like, I'm going to protect the people I know. The rest of you can kick rocks. So I think that would be a really great thing for us to deep dive into on another podcast. I'm just throwing out suggestions. I think that's
yes.
So Jason, I got a question for you, because you made a statement about community, right? Like you care about your community. And I kind of want you to elaborate on that, because I don't want to misinterpret your words. But when you say you care about my community, what does that entail?
What I mean is this. When I say community, I'm talking about us not having the mentality. See, one thing about the black culture, when I was raised on, and then my grandparents, it was a sense of community that we policed each other. We made sure each other was safe. We made sure that we looked out for each other. And me being especially in education right now is so far gone. It's so far gone where the old lady wants to say, hey, young man, you're doing something wrong. And then the young mother doesn't come and curse that woman out. So when I'm talking about that community piece, I'm talking about us making sure we're good. Prime example, one of my boxing coaches today, he posted and he talked about how he was at a gas station and this young man was cussing this lady out, talking disrespectful. Most people, they walk away. What he did was, young man, you say something else disrespectful, you move any closer to this lady, you're gonna get handed. We need more of that. That's what I mean, JD.
Okay.
All right. So is
I
that
can't argue with that.
our overall community, or are we talking about just the Black community? Because that's what I'm trying to get to the heart of it. Because when you say us, I'm just trying to make sure like I'm separating that out correctly for what you're trying to say.
Well, what I say is this, right? We can't worry about somebody else's house until our house is in order. And I'm a firm believer in that. I have multiple debates with my other friends. I have some Republican friends, and they talk about BLM. And he said, well, listen, Black Lives Matter only when police kill you. What about the Black Lives Matter when we're killing each other?
Don't do that.
Gosh,
Nope, because there is so much activism going on in these communities that is not getting uplifted. It is not as though Black people are not trying to make this stuff stop.
I wasn't saying I agree. I'm saying this is what's said. So what I'm saying is this: we have to have a tribe mentality where we get ourselves in order, JD. And I'm very pro us, pro Black. You call it what you want to call it. I'm pro seeing our people get our stuff together, getting back to the lineage of realizing that you weren't a slave. You know, that's what you started as a slave. That's what they like to portray in history. But no, you are a king. You come from lineage. Kings and queens that govern the world, but we lost base track of that. So yeah, I'm for, when I say us, I'm talking about us, making sure, hey, when I see young men with their pants hanging down, I'm not going to fear that they're going to try to rumble me. I say, young man, pick your pants up. And it's not enough for that going on because people are worried about, oh, but what if they start cursing me out? What about this? It's a lot of what if.
But that's society in general. I mean, the point that you made around the old lady getting, coming out of the house and disciplining a child, and then that young mother or young father going after that person, like that's society in its whole. That's not just the Black community. So when I posed the question to you, it was really all around trying to figure out, well, what do you mean by that? Because I'll tell you right now, I live in a predominantly white area, right? But when I look at my neighbors that are around me, like, if they're in need, do I help them out, or I'm pro-Black, so I don't know if I can help them out. So I'm just trying to get clarity on what
I think you're misconstruing. I'm not saying about.
That's why I'm asking the question, so I don't.
I'm all about helping anybody, especially when it comes to especially women and defending a woman. Because as a man, I feel like our 3 jobs is real simple: protect, provide, fix. If you do that, you're an amazing man. I think we protect our loved ones, protect others, we provide for our families, and we fix problems. So when I say that aspect, but what I do say, you live in a predominantly white area, JD, I think it would be amazing if you do go to other communities to show a positive Black man, to be a positive. Exactly. Because you, guess what? You say you do, right?
Yeah.
Because again, you're uplifting the community. Your community is not where you live at. It's your tribe, who you belong to, ultimately.
And then Kiara in the comments, I just do want to make sure I mention the comments. I like what you put just now. We've done enough policing each other, but external attacks continue to happen. When do we focus on policing the police? And I feel like that's what
the NFAC for, baby.
That's what they're representing. Drea, I do want to make sure I let you get a word in because I know you were itching to come in.
So talking about the whole segregation idea, it's wrong. People have an issue with, Black people wanting to support their own. Well, let's take it out of the Black community. Let's think about, Chinese Americans and other races in this country. They put back into their own community, and it's not construed as, they're being segregationist. They're building wealth for their community. So I think it's irresponsible to say that, we're adopting segregationist ideologies. No, we're taking care of our community so that we continue to thrive and not be treated as second-rate citizens. So, I fully support, bringing stuff back to our community. For example, we're talking about Greenwood in Tulsa. It was the Black Wall Street. It was a thriving metropolis, and that caused a lot of issues. And the KKK members came in and destroyed what we were trying to build. So I think that's, highlights a point that they don't want us to succeed. And that's why they keep trying to, do things like redlining and, destroying thriving Black cities, because they don't want us to be equal. So I reject the notion that supporting our own community is segregationist, because we need to. Who's going to support us if we don't support ourselves? Like, who's going to like help open doors and get some of these obstacles and barriers down if we don't have people in positions to make that happen? Like, how am I, as a physician, a Black physician, not going to mentor other Black medical students? I'm not being segregationist. I just realized that there's an underrepresented population in medicine, so it's my responsibility to bring up that next generation so that we can be on equal playing grounds. So that's kind of my thought about it. I don't find it segregationist to support your own.
Well, I don't find it that way either. But when someone says, I want to carve out a piece of land for us, right? That's what I'm talking about when I talk about the segregation piece, right? When we're saying we want to move and build our own Black kingdom, like those were words that he said, that's when it's hard for me to be on board. When it comes to supporting a Black business or continuing to support our own people to help uplift us, I'm all about that. Like, I think that's the right thing to do because every other community does the same thing. So why shouldn't we? But when we're talking about, hey, we want to get away from everyone else, we want to build our own thing, I got a problem with that because how many times have we done it and we saw what the result was? So now you believe that you can do it better than someone else in the past? So you just put the target right on us?
And to your point, so let's talk about the Black Panthers. So the Black Panthers, they were created in response to the KKK. And, looking at the FBI reports, and I believe it was President Nixon who deemed them as dangerous, that's when we started seeing all this counterintelligence documents started and all these crazy ideas about, the Black Panthers, calling them terrorists and, we shouldn't support the Black Panthers. It was a narrative that was created to discredit them. And so I think the same thing could potentially happen with groups like NFAC, because president's probably not going to agree with what NFAC stands for. There's going to be a lot of FBI kind of investigation intelligence on them. So that I see your point about you have to be careful by drawing a target to yourself, but I think it's again necessary because we're being killed in the streets for complying, we're being killed in the streets for resisting. So something has got to change, like defunding the police, policing the police, making these changes, standing up, becoming defenders. That this needs to happen because what we've been doing in the past, the marching, the protests, it's not working. Like Martin Luther King was protesting and was then assassinated. So something has to change because this is ridiculous. It's going on 60 plus years that we've been fighting for the same exact things. And I don't know about y'all, but I am tired. I'm exhausted by trying to explain everything that's going on to people that still don't get it.
Girl, I'm done explaining.
So,
Let me
ask you, really quick. I just want to back up something that you just said, Drea, and that is this kind of similar approach of looking at it as the Black Panther Party. And there have been outlets that have utilized that language because of the fear that America at that time was putting into the Black Panther Party is a terrorist organization, and and media has already started that rhetoric of, oh, it's similar to Black Panther. And what's interesting is there's been two points of view that I've seen come from NFAC on that, and from Grandmaster Jay himself in responding to Dr. Huey P. was more of a, hey, it's an honor to be thought of in the light with you. But in the same breath, I love that the conversation has also come out, and I'm going to read this quote. The Black Panther Party hasn't existed since the 80s, and white people who label every militant Black man as a Black Panther are being racist as hell. It basically negates the rest of your message about inclusion and diversity. Seriously, it's ignorant. Because they are not the Black Panther Party. They are its own thing. And I think it's dangerous when people try to make those connections because the way they portray the Black Panther Party to scare basically white America. JL, would you like to?
But see, this is the thing, right? And this is the frustrating thing: is why is it that when you meet a group of Black men and Black women that are not afraid of your terroristic attacks, your terroristic threats, your terror that you've bestowed upon our people for years. We're a terrorist organization. Does not anybody not realize that the docile Negro is the only Negro they love? The minute you propose a voice, it's shut up and dribble. The minute you take a knee, you're not patriotic. This has been the same thing over and over again. The fear is this, that one, when we're together, no one could be against us. We're a powerful, powerful nation. And they're afraid that we may wake up, because the men wake up, it's a very scary thing to be organized and to be for each other and not be the spook that sat by the door, but the individual that's really for the people. The next thing, why did they annihilate the Black Panther Party? Think about why they killed Fred Hampton. They didn't kill Fred Hampton because he was pro-Black. They killed Fred Hampton because guess what? He started to unite with the poor white individuals like, hey, you guys are poor like we're poor. We need to be together. And when that happened, they went in there and shot that man up. So you can miss me with the Black Panther comparisons. You could miss me with, oh, I'm scared. Guess what? I'm scared every time I get pulled over. Guess what? Scared when I go in the mall and people follow me around. So miss me with it. Every day I walk outside and it is a potential that I might not come home to my family just because I'm being Black in America. So again, right? And it's not just, I mean, I know my cousin experiences to the 10th power, and my cousin is super smart. She's a doctor. She speaks very proper. But guess what? She doesn't have the complexion for protection. And that right there is why she will always be second guessed, always be second guessed, and always will be second guessed. I'm saying it 3 times because again, she doesn't have the complexion to not be going with off the rip. I'm in education for 12 years. You know how many times when I'm invited to certain places to speak because of my educational background of me being in culture and me knowing about different behavior modules, when I show up, Jason Lewis, because I have a Caucasian name. When I was going out for the feds, before I got an education, I got a 99, 99, and 98 on the Capitol Police test. When I showed up there and they saw my report from me being a former officer, they were like, Jason Lewis? Yeah, that's me. Jason Lewis with 2 bureau accommodations? Yeah, that's me. So miss me with it. The only time they're not afraid of us is when we are doing things that is to their liking. The minute you stop living on your feet, guess what? It might be loss of life. Because guess what? Some people died during the Civil Rights Movement. Some people died. But guess what? People died when Harriet Tubman was trying to free the slaves too.
I'm smiling because I'm thinking of that old Chappelle Show skit with the Negro Damas, and the guy asked him, why do white people love Wayne Brady so much? And he said that white people love Wayne Brady because he makes Tiger Woods look like Osama bin Laden or something like that.
No, he makes oh God, what's the black dude that was on Good Morning America?
Bryant Gumbel?
But he makes Brian Gumbel look like Malcolm X. That's what
whatever it was like, it compared him to like whatever was there. And to your point, you're absolutely right. It seems like there becomes a whole lot more vitriol and fear and violence when you know that old quote, beware the Negro, all the Negro meek and mild, beware the day they change their mind. And it certainly feels like a lot more of us are changing our minds, and you're seeing the violence ramp up. So I don't disagree with your point. I don't disagree with the idea that the more we stand up for ourselves and say, no, this has to stop, people get a whole lot more spicy in terms of their violence and the rhetoric that comes out. Again, what I want to make sure, at least for me and mine, I do not want to put other people at risk. I'm fine if you come for me. It's my brother, it's my sisters, it's my parents. Those are the people that I'm concerned with.
Shiggy, can I tell you something? Be honest with you. I hear what you're saying, but they're already at risk the minute they come out the womb and have this complexion.
Don't disagree with you.
And I'm all for it. Like my great grandmother, Mildred Hale, used to say to me all the time, when I spent time with, God bless her soul, she would say, Jay Bird, I'm so glad you was born during this time because you would be hanging from a tree.
Sure
but
would.
Guess what? before I be hanging from a tree, Grandma, there'd be some people with me. I would have some company. Because at the end of the day, I'm not gonna start no mess, but I finish it. I'm not my ancestors. Sincerely, these hands. And I get it with
But see,
this.
okay, so can we talk about that quote real quick? I'm not not my ancestors. Wait, because I think that's important. Because we say that like our ancestors didn't do anything. I think I know our ancestors were the ones that were grinding glass and putting it in people's foods. They were the ones that were feeding white babies stuff that wouldn't let them thrive. They were the ones that threw the scent off of dogs when other people tried to escape. So it's not as though our ancestors didn't do shit.
No,
it's just now we have the opportunity.
When they say that quote, right, they're talking about the majority perception of nonviolence. That's what they're talking about. Because it still was a great, even this rights movement, right? You had individuals that was like this, Malcolm, by any means necessary, right? But the funny thing is, everybody loves to quote Martin Luther King about he was nonviolent, but later as he grew, he had a change of view, and there's books and documents on that as well. They never talk about his last speech and talking about. They always want to bring up "I have a dream," but when we talk about when he was like, "Oh, the dream was off."
Yeah.
So again, I honestly, what I'm saying is this: is a cause and effect. I think a lot of Europeans in this country are used to saying what you want to say. And they want to say something crazy, and they're used to a lot of people just accepting it. My thing is this: you say something crazy, you might get punched in your mouth.
So, like when you say I'm not my ancestors, you can catch these hands. That's what I'm talking about, because our ancestors did so much. But today, I can. No, because in my opinion, it is so disrespectful when we say it like they didn't do anything behind the scenes, and that may not be your intent. That might not be what you're trying to say. I'm letting you know how I perceive it. And when I say like I am not, that's all right. But when I say I'm not my ancestors, you can catch these hands. What I'm not saying is that my ancestors didn't do anything. What I'm saying is if they would have done to you what I'm about to do to you, they'd have been swinging from a rope. Yeah. Right. That's all I want to make sure that we clarify.
Kiara said a better statement. She said, instead of saying I'm not my ancestors, I'm here because of my ancestors. We see it in their shoulders. And that's
you're not wrong, Kiara. I'm here with you.
So
down my back,
right. I'm here because my
down my back there's a tattoo that says I am the hope and the dream of the slave, because that is exactly who I am, and I would not be who I am or where I am had it not been for them and their sacrifice, for not the things that they've done to put me in the position that I can thrive.
All right. Listen, I love the passion. And Jason L, every time you come on here, you bring the fire, so we appreciate it. But we do need to go ahead and get into our wrap, and we'd like to give people 2 minutes. And before I do that, I just want to say hello, Joseph and Vianney Gordon. I always like to make sure I call you guys out because I don't ever know which one of you is actually watching. Again, the shared Facebook accounts. Confusing me, but I know.
That's that Nick Tedesco type account.
So I do want to give the panel an opportunity for their last thoughts, whether it be on the 4th of July conversation that we had earlier or on NFAC. And tonight we will start with Drea. Is there any parting words that you would like to leave us with this evening?
I just wanted to highlight some of the comments. That one thing that we cannot forget is that they're allies of many different races, and we cannot discount that there are people that want to help propel this movement forward. And it's not to say that we can't be for our community, but we also have to recognize that there are people behind us wanting to push us to the next level. There have always been people in our corner. So I wanted to highlight that, and just to give an example to something that Jason mentioned earlier for myself, like how Black people, myself, get discounted, even though I've reached the degree where everyone's like, oh, this is one of the greatest degrees in America. I can think on on my hand, of several encounters where, had I not been the skin color that I am, my opinions and medical recommendations would have been taken seriously. But because of the skin color, of how young I look, I'm immediately discounted. There was a situation where I diagnosed someone with a cardiac disease. And I was told, well, you can't make that diagnosis. And I'm like, out of all of us here, I'm the only one with the medical degree. So yes, I can make that diagnosis. So
Hello.
so it's things like that are always on my mind when thinking about celebrating the 4th of July or supporting groups like NFAC. I'm always thinking about how I'm treated in America, and I want to be patriotic. I want things to be great here, but we haven't reached that level of greatness because we're still paying for the sins of our founding fathers and and things of that nature. So I will continue to not celebrate July 4th. I'm all about Juneteenth. That's my Independence Day. But I also recognize that without our independence from Britain, I wouldn't have the freedoms that I do have now. So I'm not going to celebrate it, but I'm not going to discount it.
Treya, thank you very much as always for joining us. Jason Lewis, you got 2 minutes, brother. Any parting words you would like to?
The biggest thing is this, me being pro-Black, and Jerry made a great point about the other races. I think the biggest thing that most people need to realize is educate. All races need to educate and realize how people of color are treated all over this world. And ultimately, why is that? When I think about the Europeans as a whole, they have wreaked carnage all over the globe. Their main goal has always been to conquer, destroy, and assimilate. So when I say that, I say this: make sure that you are knowledgeable of yourself. Make sure you're knowledgeable of your history. When people say, "Oh, I'm not my ancestors. I didn't own any slaves. I didn't do this," but it's a good chance that your ancestors have positioned you in this country to be well off because of the money they've made throughout the years, because of redlining and things of that nature. So you benefited from all these prejudices, the discriminations, and the injustice to our people. So be mindful of that, and then you support the cause. But again, I love all people, but I'm always for my people to be successful and be educated and be kings and queens. I tell my students all the time, you're a young prince and you're a princess. And one day you're going to be a king and queen. And make sure you hold your head up high and make sure you carry yourself as such.
Amen, brother. Appreciate you. JD, Ohio in the house. You got your parting words for us this evening.
So I think the first thing I want to start off with is I think people need to understand just because you're not out here trying to show force doesn't mean that you're afraid. There are many ways to enact change. There are many ways to get things solved without having to be violent or show force or push through it that way. What I also say when it comes to the 4th of July, you're a grown-ass adult. Do what you got to do, all right? But yes, at the same point, educate yourself. I'm not here to judge anybody or tell anybody how they should live their life. But if you ask my advice, I will give you education and allow you to make your decision on your own. But I will tell you that the notion that we have to believe the only way that we can achieve what we want to achieve is through violence, I think is one of those history could potentially repeat itself. And I don't know if y'all noticed it, that shit never worked out for us in the end. So we got to be a little bit smarter about this and think about this a little bit differently, because we can still support our communities, we can still enact change, and we can do those in different ways as well.
Thank you, JD. Appreciate your perspective. Shigi, thank you so much for this your first time on with us, and we absolutely appreciate it. We love you joining. 2 minutes to parting words. Is there anything you would like to leave us with this evening?
I would like to say I am in agreement with several of the comments that have been made here today, but speaking directly to the 26 people that are watching, I don't know who you are. I don't know what all of you look like, but I will say to those people out there who identify as Black and or African American, guard your heart, protect yourself, stay aware, stay focused, do what you can to help the movement in any way you can, whether that is going out and protesting, joining up with the Black militia group. If it is contributing to bail funds, it's helping topple Confederate statues, whatever it is that you feel you can do to help this movement, please do it. But I would also say protect yourself, take a break when you need to. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So pass the baton to someone when you're feeling a little bit tired. And I would like to close out by saying, trust, believe, protect, embrace, nurture, and love Black women. And that includes Black trans women. Thank you.
Amen. All right. I appreciate everybody. Just as far as it relates to the 4th of July conversation, Jason Lewis, I had an interesting conversation with somebody before to a point of what you were saying. And I said, well, America's a great country because it had a hell of a start, because it was able to be built off the backs of people that look like me and they didn't have to pay anything for it. So this country should be amazing and great by the way that it was built. And yet we still have a lot of opportunity and places to grow. As far as NFAC is concerned, the militia groups that you see, these Black militia groups, they aren't inspired by an abundance of disposable income or a desperate need to cosplay the glory days of the Civil War. That's not what these groups are. These various groups are inspired by the total failure of the state to protect the rights and the property of Black individuals in a manner that commensurates with white people who are enabled and sometimes assisted by law enforcement to terrorize and victimize minorities. So Black Americans are already the target of a race war. We are. And we're seeing that even more and more, especially now with these suicides that keep happening with lynching. It's weird to call it what it is. These aren't Black people hanging themselves. These are lynching that is happening. The police have been murdering us on camera. We can't go jogging. We can't do this. There's a list of things that if you're Black in America, you can't do without potentially getting murdered. And that list just say anything at this point. But when we see Black Americans using their Second Amendment rights, there's been a new explosion of pearl clutching. And I'm not going to lie to you. I've never been an advocate of gun ownership. I just wasn't, but I am actually taking the class to get licensed and am purchasing my firearm because if anything, I genuinely believe that we need to protect ourselves. We have the right to protect ourselves and our family. And the discomfort that it causes them sometimes is a little entertaining for me, but I have a sick sense of humor. So I do want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. If you do, and Shigi, I love how you said support the cause. If you all are looking to support a cause and don't mind reaching out, we have a cause right here locally. I want to make sure I do mention, we have a young Black 30-year-old defense attorney who's a community leader that has stepped up and decided to run against a sheriff who, quote, has said that wearing body cams would be wrong because it would invade citizens' privacy. That they will continue to use the chokehold procedure to subdue potential suspects. And we have already lost one African-American combat vet while in custody, and they refused to release a video that shows what happened to him. So instead of just sitting back and waiting for something to happen, this young man named Alton Edmond has decided to run for sheriff. And you can please Google him, Alton Edmond. You can look him up because I don't want you to support anybody unless you genuinely feel like it's a good person to support. But I am going to put, oh, thank you very much. It's already in there. That's where you can look it up as far as if you want to look up more about him. And if you do want to give to the fundraiser, because what I will also tell you is that sheriff has said, I'll just raise $500,000 and shut this down. And I got to tell you, we cannot let this happen. There's a lot of people that's depending on it in this area. So please, if you have the opportunity, check it out, Alton for Sheriff. And if you can give, any little bit helps. We really appreciate you. That is our time for tonight.
Real quick,
go ahead, Shiggy.
DJ,
yes.
Is this not the same county where when the 57... Why don't you go ahead and... for those of you who aren't aware, when that SWAT team quit, this is the sheriff that said, oh, come here, it's fine.
Well, his lieutenant said it. His lieutenant has since resigned with full pension and all that other fun jazz.
Where you at?
Brevard County. We were on
Florida.
We made CNN, not in a good way. So There's a lot more
Hello,
that goes
Florida.
into that. Yeah, it's Florida. You might as well cut us off and throw us away. But if the coronavirus doesn't take us out first, who knows? So that's our show for the evening. I want to thank everybody on the panel. Thank everybody in the chat for participating. You guys have been absolutely amazing. We'll be back next Wednesday, as always, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, please make sure you're following our Instagram, our Twitter, it was in there earlier, and our YouTube, because tonight was the first night that we also streamed live on YouTube at the same time as Facebook. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night.